Hello everyone and welcome back to Lamborghini, the real race. Today we're going to see a lot of action at the Nürburgring, the glorious German racetrack. I'm Vicky Butler-Henderson and I am very pleased to present today's competition. To start with, let's take a look at what happened during the second round at Spa-Francorchamps last time out.
We are racing into Eau Rouge, a slightly damp Spa-Francorchamps circuit for round 2 of the real race by Lamborghini, and they are all clean through the very, very tricky turn 1. Lecombe, and it's all clean through there. Barazoni leads. Danny Yamas, Danny inside of Luca Tavernani, but he's a bit too far back and just sends him around. The car's rotating so easily in these slippery surfaces. Battle on at the head of the field. 3 wide coming into La Source. A little bit of bumping. Ibriami, Payek, who was on the pole, and Giglioni. And they're still fighting it out as they head now down towards Eau Rouge. Not a place where you want to go side by side. The battle still continues. A little bit of touching through the Camel Straight. Still Payek holds on, but he's going to try and squeeze Giglioni to the left-hand side. There's more touching down the Camel Straight. Ibriami on the inside line. Can't find a way past Payek there. Oh, but Payek's run deep. Further back, Ibrick trying to get himself his best result so far. Guillaume Kim fighting 2. And look at this, 4 cars arguing over the same piece of tarmac. It's not going to be for a qualification position right now, but every position and every point matters as the rain continues to fall. An amazing battle with Ibriami, Payek and Giglioni. And that is Payek going a little bit wide. He's got a bit of understeer. Not on the racing grippy line. Oh, he gets turned around. That is Payek's day done. It was Giglioni who got into the back of him.
Two new drivers earned a spot on the grid of the grand final, and there are still 7 places for fast sim racers to join them. We had the third hot stint qualifier, and the top 24 drivers have been invited to compete in today's qualifying race in order to gain access to the grand final at the Lamborghini HQ in September. There will be 2 more hot stints available for everyone to join the real race. The next one will be at Suzuka, starting from Friday the 10th of July until Thursday the 16th of July. And then the qualifying race will take place on Sunday the 19th of July. If you would like to participate, this is what you need to do. The first step is to look at the esports.lamborghini website. Then fill in the registration form and finally download Assetto Corsa Competizione on Steam. The best 3 drivers of the real race will win an amazing prize, which is to participate in a track experience with the Lamborghini racing team and a 3-day VIP experience at the Lamborghini headquarters with travel and accommodation in a super hotel. Okay, let's turn our focus onto today though, and it is time to join our factory driver who will explain the tips and tricks of the Nürburgring thanks to his driving school video. Here's Alberto Costa.
Hello everybody, I'm Albert Costa, Lamborghini factory driver, and today I'm going to show you one quick lap around Nürburgring, Germany. When I take reference as the braking point, the handleboard, very important to put the steering wheel straight. Use the inside curb, don't use the outside track, at least in this car it's better. Brake very smooth, just wait, very understeer and slippery, as you can see. Watch out the track limits. Brake into first gear, V-shape, close the line. Second gear, kiss the curb, it's gonna help you to rotate the car and kill the understeer. And now here, These cones are our reference point. Brake, but don't kill the speed. Down to second, watch out, very long corner, and prepare the exit because now it's coming again a long straight. Next corner, very difficult, but we need to, I like to brake in V shape as you can see. I wait, I close the line, I'm flat out. Using the outside curve. Now we come into the Schumacher S, almost flat out. Ooh, very slippery. And now here again, there is a black mark here. We brake, down to second. Very slippery part. I use second here because the mechanical grip is helping me to keep the car more stable. Flat out and breathe a bit because it's very stressful until here. So now here between the 50 and 100 board, we're gonna brake. Not so hard because we want to keep the speed high. And down to second, just wait, and turn again because again it's very long corner. So that's it. I hope you enjoy my lap and with these small tips you can improve your times again. So don't forget to subscribe to Esports Lamborghini to join the first Lamborghini Esports and follow us on the channels like Lamborghini Squadra Corse. Ciao a tutti, grazie, see you.
Thanks, Alberto. Now let's move on, and it is time to go live with our commentators, Paul Jeffrey and Ben Constandouros.
Thank you very much, Vicky. We're getting underway for our third round around this Nürburgring circuit to qualify another 2 drivers into that all-important final. We've already seen Fulvio Barizzoni and Samir Ibrahim qualify last time out at Spa, and Nils Naujoks, Arno Lacombe and Matthias Egger. They went through 2 weeks ago in Monza. I have 2 more spaces up for grabs and a grid of 24 hungry ACC racers desperate to get themselves into that final and that invitation to Lamborghini. My name is Ben Constandouros, and alongside me is the man that knows all about this game, Paul Jeffrey. It's going to be an interesting conditions for them this evening, Paul.
Hello, Ben. Good evening, everybody at home. Thank you for joining us. It is not quite as dramatic as last time out at Spa, where we had a little bit of the wet stuff that spiced things up. But the Nürburgring, Ben, is one of the finest tracks for racing this specification of car, a GT3 type racing machine. And for me, with the grid separated by 1 second covering the top 23, I think we're on for an absolute classic race on this third round.
Absolutely, and we've got plenty of returning drivers, plenty of familiar names that we would have seen over the last couple of weeks that perhaps didn't manage to get through, but had entertaining races nonetheless. Look out for Gianfranco Giglioni, for instance. He starts 14th. Oh, and we've got to contend with the darkness as well. The man on the pole position, Kamil Pawlowski, a very, very quick driver, alongside Arthur Camara. Those two are very strong, but fastest in the hot lapping to get into this race was Jordan Sherratt, a one-time Formula 4 driver. So that grid, that first 4 drivers, and Chris Hooker as well, incredibly fast.
Yeah, Jordan Sherratt set a time over a second quicker than the rest of the field in the hot stint competition to qualify for this championship. So although he's not managed to hook up a lap fast enough for pole, he was only a 10th away from Pawlowski on pole position. Watch out for Jordan Sherratt. But for those of you at home that are familiar with ACC and esports, of course, Kamil Pawlowski was one of our top 3 finalists from the very first SRO eSport GT series last year. So he's a real big name in this field of racing. I expect the entire top 6 really to be absolutely on it right from the green flag. And as you say, Ben, we've got dark conditions. It's 8 p.m. in the evening. This is another variable that's thrown into the mix for our drivers.
Yeah, we actually haven't seen Pawlowski in this qualification so far, a lot of these drivers, a lot of top names concentrating on other competitions which recently finished on ACC, and therefore now turning their attention to run on this particular Lamborghini. Real world prizes at the end of this as well, so that's very, very important. And we've only got a couple more qualification rounds, so less and less opportunities to get that spot and that invitation to Lamborghini.
Yeah, the drivers, they realise this now. We've seen a few, as you say, some repeat names on the grid today. Ogrodnikov being one of them. Tarek Gamil, I believe we saw at Monza. Grabowski we saw last time round as well. Attila Denks. Caviar in 19th position, our lady racer in the field. So the pressure's starting to build now. You're running out of opportunities to have another crack at the whip. And that's why it becomes all the more important to grab that top 2 position. And again, as I say, Nürburgring, plenty of overtaking opportunities, bit of darkness in there as well. This is up for grabs for anybody today.
Having a look at Arthur Camara, not a man that you would usually choose a Lamborghini. We saw him racing in the SRO Esports and had McLaren and Mercedes power. But Arthur, a very, very quick guy. He knows a lot about ACC. And of course, they don't need to win this race. Polowski is in the great position to do so, but there are only 2 spots. And as you said earlier, I think that we've got 6 odd drivers. We've got Amir Husseini down in 11th position, Tarek Gamil as well. Big names in the world of ACC that have got to try to push forward, but only 2 spots available. Round the final corner they come. They have to fall into little squares to make sure they are in the right position on this rolling start, and then a very, very tricky turn 1. Tight right-hander, Albert Costa showing us the lap. Green flags fly then. Not a very good start from the 3rd row, but the front 2 rows are nice and tucked together. Of the camera on the outside line. Polowski's got the inside line. Polowski will have Sherratt trying to follow him through. And they're all pretty clean there. A little bit of contact between Sherratt and Camera. And further back, everyone seems to have got through. Masia, was that car exiting stage right? Perhaps it was. Drive-through penalties already handed out for drivers that perhaps were not in the particularly the correct order. And we look at Arthur Camera, ignore the fact that it says 13th there. I think he is still in 2nd position. A spinner further back though, and a spinner from the front of the field. We'll find out in a second who that was. But one car sitting in the middle of the track as well.
Yeah, so Gigioli lost control of the car when challenging Sherratt, I think it was, for 3rd position. It could have been Camera for 2nd, just made a little bit of contact with the rear quarter of the 2nd place man. That's turned the nose to the inside barrier, and Gigioli will be dropping down the running order now. So shame for the Italian driver as Grabowski gets involved in the rear end for 5th position. Bit of a British touring car punt there. Just knocked the driver off the racing line, and Dennis Grabowski moves himself up to 5th position in a very aggressive move there, Ben, in the opening lap.
So Giglioni down to 17th spot, and Husseini was another man who got involved in an accident at the start of that race. So he has bailed out straight away into the pits, and he will try again next week. Every 2 weeks, we have a competition for these guys, and 1 or 2 more opportunities to qualify. I think there's 5 more spaces available. Here is Nurby, Michele probably, actually, in 7th position. And a good start from where he qualified in 7th, so has kept out of trouble with Polowski leading Camera, Sherratt in 3rd, Hooker moved up to 4th position, Grabowski 5th, Santoro, Nurby, Tarek Gamil, Schill, but with a drive-through penalty, so Gregor will be descending the order. Then Orignikov, we've seen him a few times, Hartveld in 11th, Pertil in 12th, Dents, Kim, Tavernari, in 15th position, Massi in 16th, Giglioni 17th, and look, 3 cars now in the pits. Yamus, he had some penalties in the last round, so he's come again. He was the last of our qualifiers. He had a drive-through penalty, and now he's in the pits. And Garcia as well. He was a front runner, wasn't he, in our race last time out at Spa?
He was, and actually talking of the front runners, Ben, I'm a bit curious. I thought Provosky would run away from this one. He got a good start. He managed to get in front of Camera and pull a little bit of a gap. But actually, Arthur Camera is starting to close the gap between the race leader. And in 3rd place, who we're looking at now, Jordan Sherratt. Again, another driver faster than our current race leader. So these 2nd and 3rd position are not letting Kamil Pavlovsky run away from this at the start of the race. That's something I did not expect to see. I thought clean air would open the door, but apparently there's very much a race is on at the top. And there's a race on as well outside the top 10. Igor Ognarodnikov, we're watching now, the Russian driver, another one that we've seen plenty of in ACC. Aggressive, but under attack.
Marvel at the beauty of this fantastic platform. ACC, one of the newest race simulators to come out on console very recently, but also on PC. And it really does replicate, not only look like real life, but also replicate the feel of real life as well. There was a car facing backwards there. 10th position went past him. Who is it? Looks like Hoika has made a mistake.
Yeah, he was running in 4th position, I believe, just behind Jordan Sherratt. So whether he's made a mistake of his own accord, Grabowski's got involved, I'm not sure. Hopefully we'll see a replay of that one. But Hoika, a very, very fast driver. So it's a shame to see him in strife so early in the race, unfortunately. That's kind of broken up the race leader challenge. So Pavoski, Kamara and Sherratt in a race of 3 at the front at the moment. Denis Grabowski has got absolutely everything to do to try and close that Hoika-shaped gap that was ahead of him. As we see in Loy Messiah now with a fight behind him, that's Kim, Lee and Gigioli recovering from his lap 1 incident. So Gianfranco on the outside now, not the optimal line, wants to be a little bit careful, probably concedes that position. Dirty line there, yes he does, looks up the inside for the switchback, too far back on this occasion, but he'll want to keep it clean, catch the inside curb, swing it for the shortest route possible for the second part of the corner. But Gianfranco Gigioli giving it everything, but in 16th position. That's heartbreaking for the young driver.
He's got himself a lot of work to do. Qualified in 4th position, but had an issue on that first lap. And to get himself in the top 2 to qualify is going to be very tricky. But as we spoke about last time out when we were at Spa-Francorchamps, there is a lot of education that these guys can get out of racing, even if they're not going to get themselves into the top 2 this time. Next time there's that potential. And so you can learn what the drivers around you, how they behave. Many of these are drivers that we're seeing week in, week out. So it is all good education, Paul.
It is, you're right. Every time you step in a race car, be it real or virtual, you take something away, you learn something. The day that you get in a car and don't learn something is the day that you need to step away from the cockpit. And Giglioli, I've seen a lot of him in the last 12, 18, 24 months in different series. He's an incredibly fast driver, but if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. So I expect maybe he's trying to use all his bad luck up now, Ben, then eventually qualify and run lucky in the final. But this is not the last we've seen Gianfranco Giglioli. I am absolutely certain.
We've lost Igor Orognikov. He's dropped down to 19th position. And in fact, I think we'll be going into the pits soon, as does Gregor Schill. In fact, Gregor disqualified for not taking that drive-through penalty. That drive-through came up very, very quickly, Paul. So presumably that was down to not the correct positioning at the start of the race.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Ben. As you say, the drive-through came up almost instantaneously from crossing the green flag to start the race, which suggests he's either not keeping speed or he's not staying within the allocated area on the formation lap on the run to the checkered flag. So Schill qualified in 17th position, just 7/10 off of the pole position. So not quite at the sharp end of the grid, but he would have seen that on his dash, that he's got a penalty. The radio would have suggested to him as well, the pit to car radio would have suggested, so a shame there for Schill.
Right, let's have a look then at what happened at the start of the race. Lloyd Messiah here, right in the middle of the pack. Good opportunities, a bit of loading going on the inside line. That was Amir Husseini. And, Messiah got spun around and then collected by the number 5. So I think that was Eleanor Cavillon. She is still running in 16th, but I think will have damage from that contact.
Yeah, Lloyd Messiah got away a little bit lucky actually there to be punted back in the right direction and hopefully not carrying too heavy a damage. But meanwhile, while that's been happening, Jordan Sherratt's got his foot down and he was painted to the back of camera, but has lost a little bit of a run on the long back straight into the final NGK chicane. But this is turning out to be quite the fight for these three. The pace is all very similar lap time wise across the board. Kamil Pawlowski's now lifted the pace a little bit from the early running, as we've seen Davlish Singh looking up what will be the outside, I think, into the chicane. No room there. Singh reverts back to the back of the car in front, which is Giglioli again. So these two fighting tooth and nail for 15th position. Good for the racing, but no rewards for P15 in this event, I'm afraid.
Always good entertainment, though, and we've seen this in both of our races so far. First round Monza 2 weeks ago, then the last time out was a drizzly Spa-Francorchamps, and now we're at the Nürburgring in the darkness. But always entertaining racing throughout the whole field, even if it's not, as you say, for the qualifying positions. We do have good fun, and it's great to have a kind of, well, it's ended up being a single-make GT3 race because the only car that these guys are allowed is the Hurricane. Now, I've noticed that there's a lot of work that can be done setup-wise. This isn't a fixed setup event, so there's a lot of kind of fine-tuning these cars to get them to a point of being fast.
There is, and there's a lot of consideration to take as well. As a driver, you can't have it always in a car setup. You can have it quick, usually, as a rule of thumb. You can have it quick at the beginning of the race and go off towards the end. Or you can have the car come in as the fuel load's lighted towards the end of a stint or the end of a race. Now, sense dictates that you want a fast car at the end of a race because the opening few laps you're caught in traffic, there's a start line scenario, but it all depends on a driver's feel. There's a lot of things you can do with a GT3 car. You have to consider tyre life, which should be reasonable on this track in these relatively cool conditions for a 45-minute race. But small changes to your car can have a big impact on your performance on track, and the experienced drivers will know this and will tune it to their expectations of the event. We should be staying dry, so we're going to stay fairly consistent, and I think the three guys that we're looking at now in the front of the field are all very experienced drivers, so they'll be going for quite a neutral setup, but they're quite similar, and it's just down to driver skill in a one-make championship then, isn't it? It's just down to how hard can you push and how clever can you be.
Absolutely. We rode on board with Tarek Gamel for a little bit, having a look at the interior shots of these beautiful Hurricane Evo GT3 cars. And at the moment, it's station as was at the front. Polowski from camera and then Sherritt. Now, Sherritt less than 7/10 of a second off the back of camera, and I think that is going to be closer when we hit the next timing beam. If you can see on the left-hand side on the timing screen, it only updates every sector. So Sherritt has got his foot down now and perhaps has found a bit more pace. There is a long race here, 45 minutes race in total. So we do see, and we have seen in previous races, how the tyres fade at the end of the race, and then the performance of the drivers changes. So camera here now 1.1 back from Polowski, but 0.4 of a second ahead only of Sherritt. We may well see a change here in a few moments' time for second and the one qualifying spot.
Yeah, Camera's struggling. Camera is the slowest of this three-car bunch at the front of the field. And I think Jordan Sherritt can sense that now. You look at the cockpit as he runs a little bit wide there, not taking quite as much curve as Camera ahead of him. But Jordan Sherritt can smell this opportunity ahead of him. He knows he needs that top two position. He's seen himself close up to the back of Camera over the last two laps. And he knows in his back pocket he's got that incredible qualification pace to get into this competition, into this third round of the Lamborghini Esports series. So as you say, Ben, he's now firmly in slipstream territory, and down this next long straight into T1 is a great opportunity if he can get a good launch off the final corner, which I think he does. This could be a move here, Ben.
Jordan Sherritt, one-time Formula 4 driver over in the United States. The South African has real-world experience, and he wants some more, with Lamborghini. But for the moment, he's off the qualification spots for this race. Carries a huge amount of speed at the apex. Not necessarily, well, there's two very separate lines there. Arthur Camera slow on the apex, but then have a more direct line to the next left-hander. Whereas Sherritt sending it in there, using all of the speed, but making the track longer for it.
Yeah, a very clever piece of driving from Arthur Camera there. Park your car on the apex. There's absolutely no room past. You compromise the car behind, and then you can get on the throttle earlier and try and extend that gap coming out of the corner as Ognarodnikov now looking around the outside of the number 11 car. So Igor Ognarodnikov going the long way around, kisses the sister Lamborghini, but now this outside becomes the inside for the left-hander. The 11 Lamborghini stays around the outside. Fabulous piece of driving there between Ognarodnikov and Kim. And yeah, that fight will continue. Kim retains position despite it looking like a bit of a done deal from the Russian behind. So Ognarodnikov again around the outside. Very brave move, but Kim closes the door, and now he's going to try and find, flashing his lights in frustration there. But
I think
all's fair in love and war.
It's Chris Hoyker on the in 19th spot, and he gets into the tail of Ognarodnikov and pushes him wide. and Chris was trying to get past, and Oroynikov was being very, very defensive. So that was what we were seeing there, and now with a little bit of contact, he's managed to find a way through. But the stewards won't like that at all. We do have race stewards, but don't expect to see any drive-through penalties for contact and crashing during the race. We do hand out penalties post-race only. So the results do sometimes change. We did see a change in the first race, but not too many penalties last time out in Spa. The main problem was just trying to keep the car on track.
Yeah, good spot there, Ben. My apologies for getting too excited in the battle and not checking my numbers, but here's a man on the move. This is Tarek Gamel. Now, Gamel qualified in 10th position, just under half a second away from pole position. We've just seen him overtake quite easily, I must say, Michele Nürburgring in the number 8 machine. So Tarek Gamel's moved himself up to 6th position and is off on the pursuit of Santoro, Danny Santoro in 5th, and Grabowski just ahead of him. So great drive so far from Tarek, a driver again that we've seen a couple of times so far this season.
It's good to see that those drivers that did get drive-through penalties or visited the pits have actually stayed with us. Only Husseini's the only driver who actually has bailed out totally. The rest of them, whilst they're still a long way down, they still join back into the grid. So that's nice to see. With now 15 minutes gone of this race, still half an hour to go, and still really the question mark is over second position. Arthur Camara, you would expect him to feature in the qualification phases. You would expect to see Arthur as one of the guys that goes through to the finals at the Lamborghini headquarters with his teammate Nils Neujoks. But right now, pace-wise, he's just not quite there, and he's very, very much under pressure from Jordan Sherratt. Here we are again, and the gap is kind of slightly stretching away from Polowski, but you would expect that because Kamil is effectively our champion.
Yep, that's right. Camara's now found a little bit of lap time in his back pocket compared to, he was struggling 3-4 minutes ago, and he sort of had, as we see there with Sherratt, taken to the grass into the NGK chicane, manages to keep the car pointing in the right direction, so it's a time loss, but still lives to fight another day. And that is all Arthur Camara's Christmas has come early. He'll have seen Sherratt taken to the grass. He's got himself a little bit of breathing space, coupled with his slightly increased pace. This is Camara's opportunity now to break the gap between Sherratt behind, put enough clean hair between the two cars to give himself a little bit of peace of mind for the last 29 minutes and change of this race. Because let's be frank about this, at this stage at least, Camara does not have the pace of Pawlowski ahead of him.
No, but he doesn't need it because he's in the position to qualify, and that's all you need to do. We go on board with Chris Hoyker. It looks to the inside of Kim, and Chris artificially down at the tail end of the field and much later on the brakes, and will easily claim that apex. Very strange braking rhythm from Kim there. Kind of just allowed Hoyker to go up the inside. So Hoyker now into 17th, and Davish Singh is the next man on his tick list.
Yeah, and as you said at the top of the broadcast, Ben, even if you're not looking like you're going to score big in this one, it's all good learning. It's a good experience. Hoyker is a very established, very quick driver, so I'm sure he'll be expecting to be in with a good shout of qualifying for future rounds. Anything he can pick up about driving these cars in this race condition, organised by these organisers, maybe some of the drivers he'll meet again in future competitions, that's all good learning. That's all information for the back pocket that may come into use. As Michael Schumacher put it back in his heyday in the early 2000s, every time you go out, you pick something new up. Well, even when you make a mistake, you learn from it. You learn how the car reacts in that condition. And Hoyker will be doing exactly the same thing, learning as much as he can about his car and his rivals for future use. And don't get me wrong, expect to see that man at the top of the field at some stage in a future round. Chris Hoyker, incredibly talented driver.
So we've only got 2 rounds left of this qualification phase, which means we have only 5 spaces left. Suzuka is next up in 2 weeks' time, and then we have our final round at Laguna Seca in the very first days of August. And then we'll have our month and a half off before we then go to Lamborghini's factory with all of our winners, with all the people who have managed to qualify, and we'll have a final race. The prizes, as Vicky's already said, absolutely amazing. First place prize is effectively 600,000 worth of euros. 500 euros. I'm reading it completely wrong. And they will be doing track experiences at Lamborghini and VIP experiences at the Lamborghini headquarters as well. So a huge amount of stuff to look forward to, as well as being and establishing for some of these guys who do sim racing professionally, establishing a contact with a team, with a brand that is only going to push forward in sim racing in the future.
And that's incredibly important, actually. We always have our eyes on the real world prize, which of course we need to do because that's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. But sim racing and esport is growing and growing and growing, and you can make a very reasonable living, thank you very much, from being a professional esport driver. So all these people, some of these guys are attached to teams already, some are very much privateers in the traditional sense of the word, just doing it from home, managing their own affairs. This is a great shop window. We've got tens of thousands of viewers watching these races on Lamborghini. We saw on the launch event that we had Stefano Domenicali and lots of Emanuele Pirro, lots of big people from the Lamborghini brand. You impress in front of people of that calibre, it's very, very likely that you'll get picked up by some level of professional esport contract. And that's, I mean, just think it's incredible to be paid to do something that you do as a passion, as a hobby, is pretty much the definition of living the dream. So every performance that you put in, no matter where you are on the grid, it's incredibly, incredibly important that you perform highly, cleanly and professionally. And the world is very much the oyster for these drivers. Anything could come from good performances. And Ben, look how dark it's got on track now. This is going to be a very different experience than when the green flag fell.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been watching Luca Tavernari, got to keep my teeth in, who finished 7th position at the last race, qualified through into this one as well, so that's quite impressive. He missed our first round at Monza, but we would expect to see him a little bit further up than where he is right now. Doesn't seem to have damage. You can tell the cars that have had damage, front-end damage at the very least, because they're missing bits of their light facade and front bumper. But Tavernari is kind of disappointing here. Should easily be able to get past Lee and the guys up front in front of him. He should be in the top 10, but for the moment didn't qualify particularly well and very much outside of the positions in which he wants to be in.
Yeah, Tavernari, I believe, got passed earlier by Kinlong Lee. Lee's having a driver, again, we've seen before, often in varying degrees of excitement and trouble. But on this occasion, Kinlong Lee, really nice clean pass on Tavernari and seems to be pulling away as we're looking a great shot, very atmospheric, as we're looking from the back of the GT3 Huracan Evo of Luca Tavernari at Giglioli and Ayanori Caviar. Oh, having a ding-dong 0.5 of a second separate them to those two. And Cavion's not been as quick this weekend as we've seen her previously. We did see a little bit of contact, I believe, at the opening few corners, so maybe she's carrying a little bit of damage, but it looks like she's in attacking mode now, chasing down a very yo-yo-esque Gianfranco Giglioli now. So can we make a move into the chicane, Ben?
Getting close. Difficult place to make a move into the chicane in this spec. Obviously, the Formula 1 spec of circuit has a very slow chicane, big braking zone, but she is crawling all over the rear end of Giglioli, making him defend, making him move around the circuit. A French motorsport livery designer by trade, so she effectively designs the liveries, although the liveries here are having to be bespokely used by the real race. If you see her in other races, she may be running one of her own liveries, and if you ever want a livery of your own, she's the woman to go and get one sorted. So a very creative lady, and obviously a very fast one, because we saw her last time out in Spa. I think we saw her, she finished 6th in the opening round in Monza, so she's been able to qualify so far every single week.
Yeah, she's an incredibly fast driver. She won our SRO Esport AM Championship warm-up race over on Race Department at the beginning of the season. Commanding performance, actually, from Ayanori there. And we've seen some of her livery designs on the site as well. Really talented, as you say, livery designer, a very fast racer. And it's great to see a female participation in sim racing, something we don't see enough of, in my opinion. So great to see Ayanori flying the flag for lady racers and being an incredibly talented racer. I remember racing against her in a championship years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. So she's been around for a long time despite being reasonably young in age. So Ayanori Cavillion not having not having a spectacular race this time, but again with that inherent speed I'd expect to see her at one of the 2 final races as well. It'll be great if she can try and pull off a result and get a qualification spot. But if not, still very strong performances regardless.
Of course, now the interesting thing about the next 2 rounds is they are not from the original ACC launch edition. They are from the IGTC add-on pack. So do we expect different drivers to shine? Perhaps some drivers with much less experience on those tracks, on Suzuka and Laguna Seca?
That's actually a really good point, Ben. Not one that I've really considered, but you might well be right. The tracks have been available for less time than the core version 1 release circuit, shall we say. And as well, Suzuka, and in particular Laguna Seca, are very unique racetracks. They require a very unique skill set. Laguna's a short lap, so you make one mistake, miss one braking point, go wide on an apex, and you're going to plummet down the order. So it requires a very special kind of driver to be quick on both of those circuits. So I would expect some circuit-specific specialists, shall we say, and that's hard to say without teeth in, to show up in those rounds. I'm really interested to see who can put it at the front of the field, especially Laguna. Very challenging track, despite looking relatively straightforward.
We are just over halfway of this 3rd qualifying race for Lamborghini's entrance into the virtual world to discover a virtual champion. And we've already got 5 drivers qualified over the last 2 weeks. Fulvio Barrizzoni, Samir Ibriami, Niels Naujoks, Arno Lecombe and Matthias Eger. And for the moment this evening, it's Poloski and Camera who have those 2 spots. Arthur Camera does not have the pace of Kamil Poloski, but he does have pressure from Jordan Sherritt, who was the fastest man in qualification in the hot stint to get into this race, but qualified for this particular event only in 3rd position, and therefore has been in 3rd position ever since. Didn't have the opportunity to improve his spot through the first couple of corners. He has tried and sent it once on Arthur Camera, but hasn't managed to make it stick. Dropped back to 1.1 seconds back. Now the gap is just over half a second again, so there is still the potential for us to see a change. Outside of that, Grabowski is going to be hoping that those 2 get together so he can qualify, because his pace today is definitely not there.
No, Jordan Sherritt's lap times have dropped since he managed to get onto the back of Arthur Camera, so clearly he's been held up by the Lamborghini ahead. Although he's not close enough, he's not touching distance close, there is the aerodynamic wash from the Lamborghini. It pokes a big hole in the air. That dirty air is coming back onto the back of Jordan Sherritt. That's reducing his ability to turn the car in quickly. That's upsetting the balance of the car in the high-speed corners. But conversely, it's sucking him along the straights faster than it would do if he was punching his own hole in the air. But Jordan Sherritt, his lap times have plateaued now. He needs to find a way past Arthur Camera. He's not in danger of being overtaken from behind, but 3rd place is absolutely useless to him. He needs that top 2. Now, whether he's been tactical, he's watching Camera ahead, understanding where he's quicker, whether he's waiting for his car to start coming into play a little bit more, or whether it's purely these are 2 guys that are absolutely on the top limit of their pace and he just can't close up on the back. We'll find out over the next 18 and a half minutes, but this is fascinating, Ben. This is 2 sim racers at the absolute top of their game.
Very interesting also to see that we've not had any of these top 3 in any of our races so far. Poloski, Camera and Sherritt, we've not featured at all in the 3 events so far. So Grabowski we have seen before, Santoro and Gamel, but these are kind of 3 new names to Lamborghini, and already straight into the top and straight on the pace. Of course, there is another opportunity, and for sure we will see Camera and Sherritt if one of those 2 don't manage to get through and qualify, because they will have, we lose 2 this week, 2 of the faster guys. So then when we move on to next week, there are perhaps the pace is slightly less because we've already got 7 people qualified. But either way, still a challenge and still a desire for all of these guys, especially for someone like Jordan Sherritt, who has real-world experience, who will want to make that contact with the Lamborghini. Very, very important for him to try and find a way through and to find a way to get to the Lamborghini headquarters in sometime in September.
Yeah, I think Jordan Sherritt's been listening to our commentary. It seems like he's really starting to push now. You can see how aggressive the car looks on track. It's moving about, the fine detail is really forcing the car into the apex, trying to get the mechanical grip, the aerodynamic grip to push him through the corners as quick as possible. And as an intelligent driver, he'll know where it's important to be fast, where it's important to be sensible and keep it smooth. And I'm looking now, although we're focusing on Sherritt, if you look ahead at Camera's car, he's running a little bit wider. He seems a little bit scruffier than Jordan Sherritt at this point in time. So I think the advantage is very firmly with Jordan Sherritt at the moment. But can he do enough? It says 0.3 of a second. I'd wait 0.4 of a second. I'd wager it's even less than that now as we see Camera make a mess of the chicane. There's nowhere to overtake here. But Jordan Sherritt needs to be clean on corner exit, get a good run. And that's exactly what we're talking about, Ben. Camera is under pressure and is getting scruffy, and this is a good chance for Sherritt now.
Camera will see that Sherritt's getting closer. He'll have all the information about what the lap time is. He'll also be able to see where Camera is in relation to his car. They'll both have the data to see, have a radar basically that shows them exactly where the two cars are. So you can't be turning in on somebody like that because there's no excuse. You know that they're there. It's not like in the real world where you can kind of claim that the seat's in the way and you can't actually see the car beside you. There is no excuse here. They've got the radars. They know how close those cars are. Those radars show up different colours if the car is particularly close or not. And basically, they have every bit of information they need. So Camera is being absolutely flustered right now, and Sherritt is all over the rear end, over those flaming, glowing exhausts in this night sky at the Nürburgring. Sherritt coming down now to the hairpin at the bottom of the hill. This is a place where you can overtake. And again, Camera defending hard. And now really the run all the way back to the start-finishing line. No massive braking zones that you could throw it up the inside. But look how loose Camera is. The car is not sticking to the ground. He's not being able to take the best racing line. And that is just inviting Sherritt to have a look down the inside here. But again, not quite close enough. But it's enough to put Camera offline. Now I would say there's not another opportunity until turn one.
Yeah, you can see riding on board with Sherritt there. Camera's got the worst of both worlds. He's got turn-in understeer and exit oversteer. So the car's really struggling now. And Jordan Sherritt just explained to everybody at home what he's doing. He's showing his nose at the inside, not in a bid to make an overtaking move, but to make it so Camera's watching his mirrors and not through the windshield, trying to fill the rear view mirror of that Lamborghini ahead with his car, with the #1 Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, trying to give Camera maximum distraction away from going as ultimately as quick as he possibly can. And it seems to be working because, as you said, Ben, Camera looks like flustered's unfair. I'm sure he's more professional than that one, but he's certainly a man under pressure. He's missing the turn-in as we see Michele Nerbi now down pit road for a drive-through penalty, presumably for a track limits infringement. Jordan Sherritt's the man on the move. This has got an air of inevitable written all over it.
13 minutes and 50 seconds for him to hold on, but he will do everything he can here because this is either qualification or not, or reset, learn Suzuka, work out how to get into the top 20, work out how to qualify well, and then in 2 weeks' time come and join us again on Sunday evening. So Camera doesn't want to do that. He wants to get himself qualified, get through, focus on something else over the next couple of weeks. They've got so much sim racing going on. These top-line sim drivers are always racing in something or other. There's always events to do. At the weekend, Arthur was doing a 12-hour race on ACC and a 24-hour race on iRacing. He also, his teammate was also doing the E-Rock competition as well. So they're stretched themselves, and how they flit from one car to the next, from one platform to the next. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's something I've always struggled with. I'm a very much David Coulthard-esque, and I need a little bit of time to bring myself up to a level. But these guys and girls, the quality is so high that they can jump into pretty much anything at any given time and be absolutely bang on the pace. But as we're seeing now, Sherritt, when we were speaking earlier, coming into this final corner, didn't get the run he needed. It seems like Camera is really good off of corner exit, which is absolutely what he needs to do. Coca-Cola curb is one of the most critical corners on the circuit. You get a good run off there, the longest straight on the track can carry you enough speed to not be vulnerable into this T1, which is one of the key overtaking manoeuvres. So you see now, riding on board with Sherratt, all over the back of the Lamborghini ahead, but he's quick in places that he doesn't need to be quick in, and not fast enough in the key points of the track, and that will not have gone unnoticed by Arthur Camara.
Arthur Camara still has the ability to defend here. He'll know that he is stronger in certain parts, as you say, and therefore he will be able to try and hold on. Less than 12 minutes remaining. That's around 5 to 6 laps around here. Still plenty of work to do. Meanwhile, Kamil Polowski check out down the road, 4 seconds to the good. He can chill and relax, because I think he has definitely booked himself the opportunity. But look, just 0.4 of a second separating these two drivers. One small mistake from Arthur Camara and Sherratt will be down the inside. Whether they then make contact, in fact, their pace is not as good by the looks of things. I don't have the big timing screen on my computer today, but Grabowski looks like he's faster and closing down these two ahead.
Yeah, Grabowski's been running faster for the last couple of laps or so, which is completely explained by the intensity of the battle that these two cars are currently undertaking. But with 11 minutes on the clock and 3.7 second deficit, might be an order too tall for Grabowski to find his way up to the back. Because as Murray Walker once famously said, catching is one thing, passing is an entirely different matter. But if Jordan Sherratt gets Dennis Grabowski in his rearview mirror, that's another element that he does not need in his fight for Arthur Camara ahead. So Sherratt really needs to make this happen in the next 3 or 4 laps. Otherwise, he's going to be in a danger of having a third car buy into this fight. And as you said, Ben, earlier, second position is the only thing that matters. So I'm not suggesting this will happen, but it's almost worth just sending one, because finishing third's worth nothing to you. There's no points on offer. It's not a championship over multiple rounds. Third place is as useful to him as 21st place. So he needs to make this move happen.
Further down, Attila Dense in 8th position, just 0.6 of a second behind David Pertil. Look, Chris Hartveld a second back from him. So a nice little battle, but really for nothing down there in 7th and 8th spot. Just gathering information, getting themselves ready for hot lapping around Suzuka, and then perhaps joining us in 2 weeks' time for the next event here on ACC. Assetto Corsa Competizione is the platform. The game, it's available for PC, but it's also available for PlayStation 4 now. And it seems like a pretty good console on PS4, as well as kind of replicating real life. It is the most realistic simulation. Don't expect this to be easy. It's being made look very easy by these guys, but because it's a simulation, it really does simulate everything. Tyre degradation, how the Pirelli tyres operate, and that means this is not an easy thing to do. We're looking at a replay here, a bit further back down the order. On the outside, inside line for the next, and that's passing 34.
Yeah, that's a very typical Nürburgring overtaking manoeuvre. Outside for the first part of the corner, turns into the inside, get the car into the apex first. The driver that's now on the new outside has absolutely no option but to concede, and that was Tavernari, I believe, and Giglioli. Yep, so great piece of driving. Now, I know we're looking at the top 3 fight, Ben, but I want to roll back to P9 and Chris Hartveld. That's a driver that's not performed in this race as well as I would have expected. Chris qualified 5th position, 0.3 of a second away from the pole. Dropped back in an incident early in the race and has never really recovered from there. And I'm quite surprised. Hartveld, a very strong driver, I would have expected more from.
Hooker down the inside. This is on Eleonora Cavillon. So Cavillon's going to lose 13th position. Is she? Hooker's got that one easily in the bag, and she'll have to worry about Tavernari as well. Well, how did Tavernari drop that far back? He was only fighting with Giglioli a couple of moments ago, but Tavernari now 3 cars behind Giglioli, so something went wrong for Luca the last lap through, and Chris Hooker up into 13th, Cavillon down to 14th. Back to our battle for the final qualification spot. Arthur Camara, German. South African Jordan Sherratt behind, just 0.4 of a second back. Sherratt has the pace, but time is running out. 7.5 minutes less to go in this race. And there's not that many places to overtake, but Camera again is messy, just not quite hooking up the apexes. Is there an overlap here? I think there may be as they come down to the braking zone of the hairpin. No. I'm getting lost. We're going up towards the chicane at the back end of the lap here. And Camera a little bit late on the brakes, but offline. This perhaps is an opportunity for Jordan Sherratt, who takes a lot of curb and throws himself into the kitty litter, gets away with it, stays off the... from spinning around on the grass, but putting pressure on Camera, putting him in a different place so that Camera had to change up his line. And actually, as they cross the line, still only 0.4 of a second, separating the two of them, but it was starting to get creative now from Jordan.
That's a very generous way to put it, definitely calling it creative. But yep, Jordan Sherratt helping out the groundskeepers at the Nürburgring, doing a little bit of grass mowing into the final turn. And Jordan Sherratt's got... I said earlier in commentary that he looked like the smoother of the two drivers. He's starting to get an air of desperation about his driving a little bit now. And I'm a bit concerned that Jordan Sherratt can see the clock is ticking down and he's starting to become... He's not taking advantage of the untidiness that Camera is showing. Perfect example, as you were commentating over there into the chicane. Sherratt pushed too hard at the wrong time, lost ground when really he would have been in the prime seat to get the run down the start-finish straight. And I'm beginning to... Sherratt needs to take a step back, calm himself down, keep doing exactly what he's been doing, but I fear that maybe this is going to start getting a little bit too messy in the final 5.5 minutes and so of this race, which would be a shame because those two have been absolutely on the limit for a good 40 minutes racing.
Giglioli's woken up. He's in 11th position now. He's just passed Kim Long Lee. We haven't really seen much progress from Giglioli, who started in 4th position but had a horrible first lap. But now he's really making moves as Sherratt looks to the inside again. Just moving around in the wing mirrors, moving that radar around as well, just to unsettle Artur Camera and try to be unpredictable, because as you say, he's been behind him for so long that Camera knows where the places are to overtake here, and Sherratt needs to be a bit more creative. They both bounce over the curbs at the chicane, and again, look at the braking. I saw this earlier when Albert Costa did his lap. How many of these corners are V-shaped braking, meaning you brake going into the apex, you slow the car down as much as possible at the apex, rotate it, and then fire out the corner. And so many of the corners here are like that. You can see Artur Camera under brakes. He's aiming for the apex of the corner. It may not necessarily be the fastest way, but can Jordan Sherratt find a little bit of a gap? There's a little bit of a gap there. There is an overlap now, and may we see a change? No, he falls back into line, but he's later on the brakes. This time there's a contact, and he gets a half spin. Oh, Jordan Sherratt's thrown it all away, and actually he's going to lose another position because Grabowski's only 2.4 back from him now, and Grabowski moves up into 3rd. That is game over for Sherratt. He could have barged into Camera, but he did the good thing, and he spun himself instead.
Yeah, I could see exactly what Jordan Sherratt was aiming for in that move. And we said it earlier, he had to try. 3rd position is as useful as 33rd position in this race for Jordan Sherratt, so he had to give it his all. Camera knew what was happening, gave him enough racing room, and as you rightly say, Ben, Sherratt got himself into a position where a lesser gentlemanly driver could have forced the issue, maybe got himself past and disadvantaged Camera, but he kind of didn't go for it fully, but nor did he pull out fully, and that led to an awkward half spin. And Jordan Sherratt trying to do the right thing, put himself into an almost impossible position. And as you say now, he might be able to fight and get the 3rd place back to have at least the consolation of the rostrum finish, but that is absolutely all over and done with. Artur Camera's got 2 seconds in his back pocket from the chasing Denis Grabowski. Grabowski's not in the same postcode in terms of lap time. I think our 1-2, I don't want to give it commentator's curse, but I think our 1-2 has just been secured.
I think for me, Jordan Sherratt was a little bit kind almost there. He needed to get his elbows out. He needed to go touring car style, at least through the left-hander. And then, unfortunately, he would have found himself on the outside for the right-hander, which is kind of the wrong place to be. So perhaps the move would never have worked, but at least he could have had another crack at it. But by kind of being so careful about not having contact, he's ended up half spinning and now a 2.5 seconds behind, and crucially now in 4th behind Grabowski. So as you said earlier, it's not just about catching, it's also about passing. If he was 1.5 seconds back from Camera Okay, 2.5 minutes to go, not probably enough time, but at least he would be able to get back onto the tail of Camera. Here, he's stuck behind Grabowski and has no chance to progress.
That's right, and Grabowski wasn't born yesterday. Jordan Sherratt's tyres will be hotter than the face of the sun after that spin, so it's going to take a while to get the temperatures down. He may have got a flat spot, may have got excessive wear, so Sherratt's car is in a massively suboptimal position. He's frustrated, he's flustered, he's irritated with himself in the cockpit, and Denis Grabowski has seen an open door, a gift being handed to him. He's not going to be in the mood to give this up anytime soon, and it'll be interesting to see if Sherratt has got enough in the bank to find his way past, but Camera's 1.6 to the good is maybe not quite as fast as Grabowski behind, despite me suggesting he's the faster of the two, but I think he's far enough away now. We've got, what, 2 laps left on the clock, I would imagine? Yeah, that's pretty much done deal unless something really dramatic happens in the next couple of minutes.
Well, we might have at least a pass here, because Jordan Sherratt is looking strong to try and get past Grabowski. Let's have a look on board again. Paul, take us through it.
Yep, so that's Sherratt looking up the inside. He's trying to bully his way through. He realises now that the door's not going to be open. He kind of backs out of it, but then goes again. The line isn't covered, and then that just little bit of contact. There was racing space for Camera, but he just tapped the front end of Sherratt's car where Sherratt's car is on that fine tippy-toe balance. They often say in Formula 1, if you could reach out and push a car through Copse Corner at Silverstone, let's say, you could spin it around because the balance is so delicate. And Sherratt was in that exact same position. He was on the edge of grip, turning in to the left-hander. The light piece of contact, and away you go. She spins out. Sherratt, for me, needed to have been more committed to that move. You saw he kind of hesitated on the second part of the overlap, and then saw the door opened, went for it, but that's where he fell foul. If he'd stayed there, parked the car firmly on the apex, he would have been a lot more stable. But it's easy for me to say, Ben, sat in the commentary box when I'm not behind the wheel of a car after 43 minutes of intense racing.
Yeah, and I wonder if Camera's got a little bit of damage from that contact as well, because he hasn't had the pace since we had that issue. Look, 0.8 of a second between Grabowski and Camera, and Sherratt 0.6 of a second back. The clock ticks to 0. This is the last lap. Any last lap dives, it doesn't feel like they're quite close enough, but it has definitely compressed over the last couple of laps.
Yeah, but this is one man that doesn't need to worry about any last lap. Kamil Pavoske, we've seen very little of him because basically he had a poor fire off the line, but manages to keep the inside into T1, takes the race lead. We've not seen him since better commanding drive, as we would have expected from a very talented young Polish driver.
Bounces his way through the final chicane and into the final turn here. We're going to have another qualifier through. The dominant performance from Fulvio Barrazzoni last time out in Spa, and it's been a very dominant performance from Kamil Pawlowski, who comes to the line and he qualifies through to the final of our Lamborghini competition in September, a trip to the headquarters. The second position, though, is gone to Arthur Camera just by 0.6 of a second over Grabowski and Sherratt. We'll see those two names back next week for sure, because those two both have the performance to get themselves into the finals, no doubt. Lots of names further back as well that we are familiar with, like Hartveld, Giglioli, Tavernari, all people that we would expected to see at the sharp end, but it just didn't work out for them here at the Nürburgring. Next time out, though, is a very different prospect at Suzuka, and then our final qualification race at Laguna Seca could really put the cat amongst the pigeons as Herka comes over the line to finish in 11th spot. It wasn't the most spectacular of races, Paul, but we at least had that great interest for second.
Yeah, we did. As you say, there was some good racing in pockets throughout the field, but for me, I thoroughly enjoy watching drivers, whether it's real or virtual, at the absolute top of their game. And we saw that the fight for second and third between Camera and Sherratt was beautiful driving from both. A little mistake, unfortunately, blotted the copybook for Sherratt at the end, but it's great to see two people pushing to the absolute limit. And again, Ben, thoroughly enjoyed being alongside you, albeit virtually and socially distanced, of course, by several hundred miles. But yeah, really, really enjoyed that one, and hope everybody did at home as well. Lamborghini Esports starting to make a mark in the sim racing scene with 3 very entertaining races.
Well, I think you've summed it up, Paul. So it leaves me to say thank you very much. Let's get back to Vicky in the studio.
A great performance by the drivers at the Nürburgring. And if you would like to be one of the finalists who will have the chance to compete in the grand final at the Lamborghini HQ, then go to esports.lamborghini and register for the competition. Don't forget to follow us on our social media and see you on Sunday the 19th of July for the 4th round at Suzuka. I'm Vicky Butler-Henderson, and this is Lamborghini The Real Race. Goodbye.